okay, I want to know more about you. Not because of just your success in your sport, but truly like what makes you tick and why are you so full of joy? How do you normally approach a race like that?
I wouldn't change it for anything because of that accomplishment and that feeling.
And we had a chance today to, as far as go for a run. So we went for a little run and Lookout Mountain.
Lookout Mountain.
Yep. So it was a good run. Then we got to go to one of your pubs in town.
Went to a brewery, Mountain Toad.
It was fun. That was good. That was good beer. So,
got some pizza.
Yeah, we've had a big day.
It's a big day.
So we're at the tail end. The sun's just about to go down. But one of the things that I have noticed about you even before I met you today was how much joy and laughter and smile that you have. So I want to say, even not knowing you and just seeing you and how you present yourself, it is very opening and welcoming and a great, just a great ad. You know, it's a great piece to be like, okay, I want to know more about you. Not because of just your success in your sport, but truly like what makes you tick and why are you so full of joy and why are you so happy and what brought you to that point. So I'm excited to learn a little bit more about that.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah, absolutely. So back at that. So what why are you so full of joy? I'm gonna go straight in there. Because it's not just a smile, right? Like it's I think it's just just the joy that you have. It seems like it's just part of who you are.
Yeah, it's for sure actual joy. I think I don't know. I just feel really lucky. Like right now I'm running. That's my job. And I love running and I love being outside and exploring trails. And I think my husband and I have just tried to kind of make a conscious effort to like do things because we love them and follow that thread, you know, and see what happens. And so I don't know that I have, reasons not to be filled with joy every day. Like,
yeah,
it's so cool to, we get this one life and like to get to navigate our way through it however we want it's pretty fun. It's a fun ride.
Absolutely. And do you find that, or when was the earliest that you remember that you were full of joy and happiness and laughter or having that attitude to always be grateful for what you have? Has it always been a part of you?
I think so. I mean, I think for sure I was raised that way. And like my family and my parents, and there was always a lot of joy around and finding the silver lining of any situation, so that it, something that could be an awful story turns into, this fun experience that we get to share together instead of getting down about it. Yeah. So I was raised that way and have, I think, just kind of found my stride with it in the past probably like 5 years of like navigating life and following what that looks like with joy, like finding the joy in all of it.
Yeah, totally. And what helps keep that rolling? Just like what's most important to you?
Family, for sure. Family and friends. And I think I love doing all of the things that come with ultra running and traveling to these places, but making those memories with people so that you have a shared experience together. So when I travel to races, to take in the community and to make these connections with people so that all of the memories in that place are associated with, sharing those moments with people.
Yeah.
I think that's important and I love it.
Yeah. And it's kind of like you said, it's a choice, right? Like you have a choice every day to wake up and go, is this going to be a happy day? Or is this going to be not, right?
Yeah. Like, what am I going to make out of what happens to me today?
Yeah. And you've had things where you've had days that haven't gone great. Yeah, I'm sure.
Oh, for sure.
Just in life and in racing.
Yeah.
What's been the most difficult challenge that you've had in a race?
Oh, in a race, I guess my first 100-mile race that I attempted, it was my second year of running ultras. I had done a 50K. I had done a 50-mile race. So I jumped into a 100-mile race as my next thing. And it got really physically hard. And quickly then in my head, I spiraled into this just negative self-talk and like dark place of doubting myself and thinking, you know, I'm not made for 100 miles. You're a joke out here, you know, just call it. And so I did. I ended up dropping out of that first 100-mile attempt because I convinced myself that I wasn't capable of it. And I think that was the hardest. Like I've been, you know, physically hurting worse or had to drop out of a race because of injury, but like to be in such a dark place in my head where I convinced myself to stop and that I wasn't capable of doing this thing was probably the worst one.
Yeah.
But it also was the coolest because then after the race, you know, really quickly I could assess like what happened there. Oh, I just, you know, spiraled into this death zone and, you know, talked myself into it. And then I got a fire lit under me where I was like, that's not how this is going to play out.
So
this isn't how the story goes.
Yeah. And so now you have a solid mindset, I think, going in.
Well,
now,
I think that taught me about the power of our brains. And so if it starts to spiral like that, where, you know, doubts creep in, which of course they do, you know, it always gets hard. It always is going to feel like there's no way to keep going. But if you let it spiral into that negativity, it's going to go quick.
Yeah.
Like it goes down and it goes fast. But if you can just flip the script, even if you're faking it and you know you're faking it, say something different and change, you know, the whole storyline, our brains can overpower a lot, I think.
And has that taken a lot of practice? Like, do you have to practice at that to be able to turn it? Because it still comes, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Does it still come at times?
It still comes. I practice by racing, basically. So I just do more and more races to accumulate more evidence that I can survive whatever, you know, thing is happening. And then I just draw on that every time.
But those things that you're doing are always something new that you don't really know if you can finish, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it seems like we talked earlier, is like you're looking for the next challenge or the next thing that you can see how far you can push yourself, right?
Yeah.
So every time you go and race, you don't know if you can finish it like you believe you can, right?
Yep.
But you haven't been proven, like it hasn't been proven yet.
No. But I can take each little piece of it and small things happen, you know, your stomach turns and you can draw on the past experiences where you haven't taken in food for days, you know, racing or whatever it was, or you're not sure you can make it another step because you're so tired. Then you can draw on those experiences. So like piecemealing it into these small things, not even thinking of the total distance that I'm going to cover, but each problem along the way that's going to get me closer to the end.
So when you're in the race, you're only looking at what you can see or what you can grasp either in your mind or see with your eyes or whatever. Or,
yeah.
So you just break up each piece as you go and not look at the next 36 hours or whatever. You're looking at the next hour maybe, or what? How small of a piece do you break it down to?
It depends. I mean, sometimes you can, you know, feel confident about the next 50 miles, or sometimes it's, you know, the next aid station, which maybe is 15 miles away. And sometimes if it's getting, you know, really hard, then it's the next tree or the next, you know, 5 steps or whatever it is, just to keep pushing yourself forward. And eventually what I've found is like, you're in this dark place and maybe you've gotten to the point where you're only able to realize the next 5 steps, you know, everything else feels too daunting.
Yeah.
Eventually it turns over and you're flying high again soon.
Yeah. Have you had a race that has been the most challenging, but the most rewarding? Like where you've hit more of those spots that you had to get your mind through to break through barriers that you saw yourself or surprised yourself at the end?
Yeah. None that stand out as like for sure, the Tahoe 200 was a really tough one. I was mentally in a rut almost the whole race. And 200 miles is a long ways to, you know, be faking it. Yeah. So that one, I guess, would be the hardest just because I kept not finding the other side of the dark patch. I don't know what was going on.
But you made it through.
Yeah.
And you did really well.
Yeah. It was a fun one because I was in a mental rut, so I never was experiencing those, you know, feelings of like bliss out on the trails. I was mostly just like grinding out the miles because the finish line was 200 miles away, you know, and I had one way to get there. And so that was a really cool experience to like build, I think, my arsenal of experiences to draw on in the file cabinet in my brain, you know?
Yeah, totally. But when I asked you that question, like, or I said that you did really great, you paused for a second. Do you believe that you did that race great? Like, are you satisfied with that race, or you look at it and go, yeah,
no,
I could tell. But you won it, right? Like you won that race.
I can't actually think of a race that I've done that I felt like fully satisfied with it, no matter what my place was at the end. I think there's always like something you can tweak, especially in these ultras. Like the amount of hours you're out there are so many, and the number of miles that you're putting together are so many, that there's always things you can do to, you know, keep you wanting to try and do it better, which I think is one of the draws of the sport to me. Like there's no perfectly run ultra for me, I don't think.
Right. No, I totally get that, because for me, doing an Ironman, it's 8 hours plus or something, and even in 8 hours, which is short for you, there's tons of little moments.
Or like you were saying, your 15 seconds or 10-second drinks of water or whatever were the things that were adding up.
Yeah. And so I think it's important, like I think about like what makes a successful athlete, or what makes someone great in the sport, or driving to keep doing better. And one of those would probably be not being, I don't want to say not being satisfied, but always wanting more, right?
Yeah.
So how much of it is for you always wanting more, or also being satisfied within the moment of what you've done? Like, do you reward yourself, or do you let yourself rejoice in what you've accomplished in that, even if it wasn't perfect? Because you'll never be perfect, right? Like,
Oh, for sure. And I'm not beating myself up. Like when I say I'm not satisfied after a result, it's not like I'm, you know, wallowing or, you know, kicking myself over a mile that I, you know, didn't put together well, but it just keeps me dreaming of, you know, like, oh, if I could get on that course another time, like here are the things I know I could control. And then ultras are a lot of things you can't control, like the weather, or sometimes your stomach, like just randomly doesn't take in the food that it normally takes in fine, you know, or you get lost, or, you know, whatever it is. But then to piece all of those things together, the parts in your control, and then how you react to the ones you had no control over.
Yeah.
To, you know, like what could a perfect day on that course look like, or not perfect day, but how could I make it smoother throughout?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, you're going to love ultras.
But I love how you think, because you're always like processing and thinking through, like, all right, I'm going to adjust this next time. I'm going to tweak this little thing.
Yeah.
And how much better can I go?
Right.
And even though that day wasn't great from the beginning, you didn't turn around and go, oh, today's not my day. Because I see athletes like that all the time. And I've raced against athletes all like that a lot, where they'll be an hour and a half into the 8-hour Ironman, and they're on their bike and they're like, my legs, I just don't have them today. And they'll just be like, it's not my day, and they'll just stop.
Right.
And I've seen a lot of people that will feel the exact same, if not worse, and do what you did, where you just process and go through and reframe and just keep pushing. And sometimes the legs come good, because you don't know what's going to happen. The next hour, you could run the best you've ever run.
Yeah.
But you don't know unless you get there.
Right.
So always keep going.
Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah, I'm so excited for you to do 100K, 100 miles, Big's backyard.
You've already got me signed up for a ton of races. One at a time. Yeah. Yeah, I would like to do one for sure. Like, I mean, we talked earlier, we didn't talk on the podcast about how, you know, watching ultra racing just kind of inspired me. Not only watching it, but meeting people. I think that's probably the biggest piece. Was I've always heard it, and I've seen it, and I've seen results, and I've known about Western States and all these other races around and stuff. And it was always intriguing, but I never had the desire to be like, oh, I'm going to go do that.
Right.
But it wasn't until I met people that do it that you start to understand like what the passion is.
Yeah.
And I felt that for me, being a professional athlete in the top of the sport in an Ironman racing, I always felt like there's an expectation that I should perform. That's my own thing, right? And so it's finally come to a point where I feel like with the people that I've met and with your sport, that it's open to anybody.
Yeah.
And there's no expectation of like that you should perform a certain or go a certain pace. Or if you did this here, you should be able to do this here and feel like you have to compete. It's just more of the joy of just wanting to go through the adventure and meet everybody.
Yeah. What does 100K look like when you're out on the trails in beautiful scenery, you know?
Yeah, can't beat it.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah.
And then to finish it and get to hang out with all these people who either did it themselves or were out supporting, you know, one of their runners. It's a really cool community.
Yeah, and you talked about support and the support crew that, like Ironman, it's a solo sport. You're doing it on your own, but you can't do it without a team. But more so in ultra, like it's critical, your team. Like you can't do anything without your team. And so many people come around and support you. Yeah.
I think that's one of the coolest parts I've found of the sport is that the community is so welcoming. Everyone's, you know, ready to lend a hand. Or in my first 50-mile race, a guy ran back on the course when I tripped it in a mud puddle and picked me up, like grabbed me by the hand. And then, you know, we went off running together. Came back on the course.
So
what
cool.
Ironman is going to do that?
Not many athletes will do that. I've seen a few stop and help a flat tire. But
that's cool.
Yeah.
Well, this was like that was my first glimpse into we're all out there and like you're maybe racing or you know you're pushing your own time challenge you've made for yourself or your goal is to finish this race for the first time ever, but no one out there would bat an eye at stopping to help another person. Front to the back, like you're having issues, how can I help? Here are the things I'm carrying, you know, what can I do to assist you or get you going again so that you can complete this adventure.
And the first thing that I think of as you were sharing that is like, I wish we did that more just in life, in everyday life.
Yeah. And then, sharing it with crew members. So you have these crew people in ultras who will meet you at aid stations. And like Kevin is often my crew for the longer races, my husband, and he'll have at the aid station, you know, bottles for me that have, you know, the drink I like or food restock or gear change if I need it. But then it's awesome because at the finish line, you celebrate together like a team. Like, you know, we did this, we made it, even though it's my feet and, you know, my body that's actually traveling the course. I have these people who have done a ton of ultras with me just by being there and being part of it.
I've listened to a lot of your podcasts or interviews and stuff. And I honestly, and I started to look for it because I saw a theme and I heard a theme. And that anytime anyone asked you about your race, you would always refer to we, and you never referred to as I. Like you weren't like, I did this race. It's like, we did this race, or we're looking at this and we're trying to do this and approach it this way. Yeah. And it took me a few times to hear, but I heard it, I was like, no way. Like you genuinely feel like, I mean, it's so much of it is a team.
Yeah.
And your family and your support crew.
Yeah.
If you could pick 3 characteristics that either you have or a successful athlete would have, what would those 3 characteristics be? What would be at the top of the list?
Any athlete, any sport.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think like persistence.
Mm-hmm.
I think patience is different than persistence.
I would think so, yeah.
Yeah. I think patience is important. And I think like an internal drive, not doing it for external reasons.
Can we go through each one and go a little bit into each one? So persistence. So what is persistence to you?
That it's not going to go smoothly and you're going to get knocked on your backside, you know, in this pursuit. And you have to just keep clawing forward, I think, in any sport.
Yeah.
Like, keep at it even when it feels hard or you feel like you've reached, you know, the maximum you could ever achieve or, you know, whatever the thing is. Or you're I don't know, getting like turned down by teams or, you know, however it works in every other sport. But like, you're hearing no a lot to just keep at it.
Did you find that in training as well? Like,
yeah, for sure. Yeah. And I think patience plays a lot into training for me. Like, it doesn't happen overnight, but if you're clawing at it every single day, like slowly it's going to accumulate, and you have to be willing to wait for that.
yeah, you can't just rush right into it.
Yeah.
You just-
Yeah. Or like if you're going to do an ultra, like let's say a triathlete is going to try their very first 100K, for instance.
just hypothetically. Okay.
Tomorrow they wouldn't do a 40-mile training run. Like, but maybe in a few months we can get to that.
Yeah.
I've got a loop.
Yeah, you already got one mile. Yeah. You told me about, I was asking about it today. 40-mile loop around Golden. Sounds fun, actually.
Yeah.
When I'm ready for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I'm
you
smart
come
enough.
on back when you're ready.
Okay. All right. We'll do a 40.
I can't wait for the updates on how it's all building.
All right. Yeah. I may have to pick your brain along the way just to see.
Yeah. I'm not an expert, but I can at least, you know, share my personal experiences with it.
Yeah. No, I'd appreciate that.
Yeah.
So we have persistence and patience.
Mm-hmm.
And then
I think the internal piece is like, if you're doing it for external reasons, you're gonna, I don't know. I guess I don't know, but it feels like the fire wouldn't always burn as hot if you're just doing it for like a medal or a social media like or something, you know?
Yeah.
Like, feels like it has to be something you actually want to be pursuing in order to be persistent and patient with it to get to where you want to go.
Yeah. And why is it that you want to be successful, or why is it that you do ultra running? What keeps you going?
For me, it's just curiosity with what's possible. I'm like, I don't know. I'm just so amazed by our bodies and then mentally what our brains can help us do, that like, that's what I'm looking for, is pursuing that and following that as far as I can and see where it lands me.
And I'm going to go one more layer, or maybe a few layer, but like, why are you curious how far you can go, and why are you curious what the potential is?
I think I found this thing that I love a lot, which is running, and have started to, you know, dive down this hole of how far we can go and what humans are capable of. And it just feels like, why not go 100% on something? You know, like, I think there's too many things being done part way, or like people are stretched really thin, you know, so you can be good at, you know, you can do things 50% and do a lot of things. And I think it would be really interesting if more people did things 100% and did fewer things. And like, what can humans as a species then accomplish?
Yeah.
I think it would be cool.
Why is it important to go 100%?
I think because I'm like, this is the life I'm getting to live. And so if this is the thing I'm doing, I want to do it full gas. You know, otherwise, if I'm not going to invest myself fully in this thing, then I should, you know, turn and go down a different lane and find my next passion or whatever. But like, while I'm here and while my body is able and I love it so much, like, why not just dive full on and see? I don't want to be, you know, sitting on my rocking chair when I'm 95, like wondering what if or what could have been if I had just given it a little more.
Yeah. And I think the power of like pushing yourself, and the power of like knowing why you want to do something. And I think it's an exercise that I've done in the past where you keep layering the reasons why and keep going a little bit deeper.
Yeah.
And of just going, okay, like, why is it important to you to go full gas, right? And then the deeper that you can go and the reason why you're doing anything, right? For any of those that are doing the job that they're doing, or pursuing a new career or a relationship or a sport, the deeper you can go in that why, the stronger that reason is to go.
Yeah.
Right. So when you hit those walls or it gets that difficult, you have more to draw from. You have those things that are going to carry you through when it gets difficult.
Yeah. What are the 3 traits that you've heard most common, or that you would say that an athlete needs?
Yeah, mine would be, I think team would be towards the top. I think it's super important to have those around you that support what you're doing, that believe in what you're doing, and that will support you no matter if you win or lose, right? Like to be there no matter what. And because anything we do in life, you can't do it on your own.
Right.
I mean, theoretically you could, but in the end you really can't. And if you do, it kind of sucks.
Yeah. Well, that's
what is it?
You should make those shared experiences. So you've got those stories together, I think.
Absolutely.
But if someone were they were interested in doing an Ironman, and their family was like, no way, dude, like you could never do this Ironman, and they weren't his team, he could find his team. Yeah,
you can find support somewhere else.
Yeah.
Right. Ideally, the ones that are closest to you are the ones that you're going to draw the most energy and love from, and all that, right?
Or maybe they join the team late when they come around to it.
Right. And that was a challenge that I had when I got involved in the sport. I had a lot of people that just looked at me and said, like,
really?
Yeah, you're crazy.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing? Because I also came from, and this would be another aspect or characteristic that I would say would be as far as belief or mindset.
Okay.
Right. So believing, and you've talked a little bit about this, like, you don't know if you've accomplished it yet, but you're going in believing that you're going to do it, right? So for me, it's as far as belief, and that's something when I first got in the sport, I already had a goal before I did my first race that I wanted to be world champion.
Really?
Yeah. And a lot of people would look at it and go, and they did. They looked at it and go, "You're stupid. Like, you don't even ride a bike.
Yeah.
Or you ride a beach cruiser."
Wait, you weren't a biker?
No, I didn't start riding until I was...
But then you were the best biker.
And that shows that what you're born with or what you do when you're young doesn't determine what you can do late in life, right?
Wait, what were you the best at first?
I enjoyed cycling a lot. So I really I found a good team around me that I rode with, and they were willing to teach me.
Okay.
And I asked questions.
Yeah.
So I'm always a question person. Like, I want to understand, like, if I'm learning something, I look for someone who's better than me and go, okay, how are you doing? Or what made you so successful?
Yeah.
And then I pick their brain because I want to understand, because I want to get there quicker.
Right.
Right. So I would go on these bike rides, and this group would teach me how to ride, and I would ask them questions, and they would show me how to do it. And then I just enjoyed it. So I always just kept pursuing and pushing.
That's cool.
And I really believed in it, and I really set it forward, but I didn't know for sure. And sometimes you just have to take that risk. And so that's something else that a few athletes have said, is sometimes you just need to take that jump and take that leap, right? Leap of faith of going, I don't know if I want to make it or not.
Might as well try.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and then persistence as well is one I've heard a lot, and one that I for sure believe. And I see that in the things that you've done, and the stories that you've told, and also some of the races you've had. I mean, you had one race that you were literally you went blind, or you couldn't see. Like, just be brief. I know we don't have a lot of time, but I would love to hear just a little bit about your persistence. And that's I think a great example.
It was a 100-mile race in the mountains of Colorado, and I was on my way towards the finish line. I was 12 miles out from the finish, and there was this blurriness creeping in on the sides. And I really thought it was my contact lenses, or that it was foggy, or, I thought it was an environmental thing. And slowly it crept in where it was just pure white. I held up my hand in front of my face and I couldn't see my hand. But I noticed if I stared straight down at my toes, I could see that little arc right in front of them. So that was my solution to the problem. And then it was just running as much as I could to get to the finish line by staring straight down at my feet.
Were you afraid?
I wasn't afraid, no. And being afraid wasn't going to help me solve this problem. So for me, it was a very, here's your problem, here's a solution that you found, and now we go. Like, so there wasn't tons of emotion in it. It was just like, let's get to the finish line.
Yeah.
You know, and that was the only solution I found to do it. Now, if it happened again, I think depending on the trail I was on, there for sure are reasons to be afraid. And like, I did fall down, because if you can't look in front of your feet at all, you can't predict the rocks and roots and, you know, what the trail is going to do. So I was tripping everywhere. So just belly flopping, you know, like falling on everything. And one of those times I did land and smack my head on this rock.
Wow.
And like, that could have gone poorly for sure. But during, there was like zero emotion attached to it. And so I think if it happened again, like I would recall, you know, the things that could go wrong if you're running without your eyesight and you're not used to that. That maybe I would, you know, have a little more emotion attached to it.
Yeah.
But,
and you found out that it wasn't something that was long-term or anything that was going to be a problem.
yeah. Well, yep. So when I finished, then they whisked me off to get a scan of my head and check out my eyes. And I had my sight by that evening, and my head was fine. So it turned out okay.
And how long? Wasn't it like 10 miles or something that you ran where you couldn't see?
Yeah.
To the finish.
Yeah.
So crazy. It was inspiring. I mean, I heard it and I heard you talk about it before. And I know you've talked about it probably a lot. But
I want to be clear, I don't recommend it.
Yeah, right. Yeah. A disclaimer, do not try this at home. If your eyes go out, you should probably stop.
Yeah. But like, yeah. I mean, that was the solution, and the finish line was 10 miles away still. So,
but you were still clear enough to assess what was going on. Mm-hmm. Assess like, okay, how bad is it? Am I losing it? Okay, it's foggy. But so you assessed it along the way and made the choices that you could choose that you could control within the moment. I mean, you still couldn't just stop. You had to get to wherever you were going to meet crew or do whatever.
Yep.
And then was there a stop along the way to the finish that you did stop and see your crew and then had to assess again as a team?
There was a stop 6 miles out from the finish that then put you on a fire road. And so the whole way to the finish line is a fire road after that. So like a wide dirt road.
A little bit easier.
A little easier to navigate. And at that stop, they also got permission to send me with a volunteer. And so this volunteer woman, bless her heart, was running next to me, navigating with her voice the trail for me. So she'd be like, we're turning right here. There's some big rocks on your left. You know, she was giving me some auditory cues so that I would fall less, which was really wonderful. And then my husband got wind of all of this happening. So he ran up like, I think 2 miles or a mile up the trail and took over for that volunteer at the end.
And in the finish.
Yeah.
So great. And you couldn't do that without a team.
Yeah, exactly.
You needed support. You needed people.
Yeah.
So what would be 3 things that you would want to teach people through your experiences, or if you only had a year left as far as to live? What 3 things would you want to teach people in sport or out of sport from your experiences?
I think the biggest one for me, I think, is that people are capable of way more than they give themselves credit for. And so if people could, you know, believe that about themselves and then pursue whatever the thing is that, you know, they want to pursue with that belief, you know, that there is no ceiling. They can do whatever they're trying to do and do it even better than that. I think this world would, you know, be such a cool place with so many new amazing things, and hopefully maybe more, you know, human interaction, you know, as we're all pursuing these greater levels of it. It'd be
what
really
would you
cool.
say to someone who like hears that and goes, yeah, I would love to do that. Like, that sounds amazing. And I've been thinking about it for the last year or 10 years, but they're afraid of making that step. Like, what would you say if you had someone right here, right now, and you had like 5 minutes to tell them or a minute to tell them, like, how would you help encourage them in that part?
Well, I think there's a lot of situations, you know, so I don't want to try and like speak for everyone can do everything,
right,
you know. But I think you start small, and like and you keep in mind that like you're the driver of your own life. And so you get to make these decisions, and you get however many years on this planet that you've got left, and to make the most of those. And so sometimes jumping all in is the thing to do. If like you want to see if it's going to happen, try it, you know? And then if it fails, then, you know, you go on a different line. Take a tangent.
Yeah, totally. Like you have to reassess or assess along the way to see if that's still where you want to go. If not, it's okay to move.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think we're in a culture today that we're like want it now, like immediate. Like we want results. Like you said, like if I'm going to go do, you know, a 50-mile run race or whatever, like I'm not going to go out and do a 40-mile run tomorrow. Right. So there's also like a process of like going, okay, if I want to go do this, maybe find someone who's done it before. What is the plan to get there? And maybe put out a calendar of like, okay, I start here and then go here. Not try to just dive in, because then one, you could get hurt, or two, it's too big of a risk. So start smaller. Yeah. So that's kind of what
you can't like take an abrupt right turn, but you can turn like a cruise ship, you know, where you like start to get your bearings on what you want way off in the distance and like gradually ease your way over there.
And what you said about earlier when you were talking about how you're doing new races and you were moving forward, you took the things that you did at one distance and they were reinforcing your belief that you could do it. So then when you went to the next one, you could just rethink about that. Yeah. And so going forward, it's like you just take small steps. You encourage yourself with like, okay, I did accomplish this already. Now I can go and go a little bit bigger. I can go a little bit bigger. So I think that's one of the things is like being patient for one of your three things. Like you gotta be patient for the long haul. Yeah. If that's really what you want, commit, but be patient at the same time. One last question. What is something that you're grateful for right now in this moment? What are you most grateful for?
Family. Always. Yeah.
Yeah. I hear that across the board.
Really?
Just
that's so cool.
How important that is.
Have you ever walked up to someone in a restaurant or a coffee shop and asked them that question?
What are you most grateful for?
Yeah, right now.
That's a really good challenge.
It could be fun.
It could be really fun.
You might get punched, or you might like meet someone new and have a great conversation.
I think you could probably assess some people if they're going to punch you or not. I'm sure most people won't. But if you want to go find somebody, you could probably find someone who would punch you if you did that.
I would like if like whoever it is, you ask them that and they just answer you without, a big long explanation and go back to living their life. Yeah. Like it's not even a weird thing to be asked.
Well, I don't think we ask ourselves that enough every day, right? Like we talked about, it's a choice every day to be full of joy and be happy. It's the same thing. Like, what are you grateful for today? And you can always find something. Yeah. I tell my kids, trying to teach them, right? It's like, find something small that you're thankful for today. It doesn't have to be big. Just find something small. And the more you find the small things, then you start realizing that there's bigger things to be grateful for.
That's cool.
So thank you for this time.
Thank you.
And the run.
Yeah.
And
come back again.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I just want to say again, thanks for being a great role model to a lot of athletes that are out there in your sport and out of the sport, and inspiring people to try out new things and try an ultra hopefully someday soon.
Thank you.
So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for joining us and listening to this episode with Courtney Dauwalter. If you enjoyed it, please go ahead and share it on your social media and make sure to tag at Courtney Dauwalter. Also tag myself at Chris Lieto as far as promote the show. And don't forget to go check out the show notes, look at the links to the YouTube channel with the video that we did, as well as making sure that you get the links and the coupon code for your discounts for Add a Day and any other products that are there. So check out the show notes. Thanks again for joining us, and we'll see you on the next episode. Aloha.